The Honorable Floyd Green, Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Dr. Derek Deslandes, President, College of Agriculture, Science and Education, Mr. Richard Pandui, President, Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association and CEO of Seprod Limited, faculty and students of CASE, management and staff of Seprod Limited, faculty and students of the Tivoli Gardens High School, our CASE scholars and their families, friends tuning in on YouTube and Facebook, good afternoon. My name is Lisa Doyen of the Seprod Foundation, and I will be your substitute host for the 2020 Seprod Foundation Scholarship Awards and panel discussion. I am filling in for our chairperson, Mrs. Melanie Sabrati, who unavoidably could not be here today. She, however, has sent her personal congratulations to our scholarship recipients. A warm welcome to everyone and thank you for joining us. As you can see, our celebration of our scholars is taking a slightly different format this year due to the pandemic. However, we have embraced the opportunity to create what we hope is an interesting and engaging experience for our scholars and the other secondary and tertiary students joining us today. Seprod Foundation aims to promote food security in Jamaica by encouraging and fostering interest in agriculture at the secondary and tertiary school levels and providing opportunities for these young people through scholarships and internships. Our partnership with CASE and our commitment to these young people embodies our commitment to the future of Jamaica. I would like to specially welcome those that we are here to celebrate today. Our scholars, Rayon Gale, Ashley Park, Mona Lisa Seaton, Calvin Wright, and Javon Francis. Congratulations to all of you. They have been selected for this scholarship not only on their academic accomplishments, which are outstanding, but also on their commitment to their school and their communities. Let's take a moment to get to know them better.
My name is Rayon Gale, and I am a fourth-year student at the College of Agriculture, Science and Education. I'm pursuing a bachelor's degree in animal science. The reason why I chose this program or this field of study is because, one, I love to work with animals, and I'm very passionate about animals. I must say, words can't explain, but what I can do say is that it has helped me tremendously, and I am very appreciative of it. What motivates me? I am motivated by innovation. That is what drives my my development to where I'm at today. Well, my future plan or my short-term goal now is to finish my bachelor's degree at the end of this year. And my long-term goal is to, get a job here at CASE, continue to work towards the development of the college. Agriculture is important because, for one, it provides jobs, and two, it helps to reduce the trade deficit because Jamaica is in a trade deficit. We import more than we export. Agriculture has surpassed the notion of, a person toiling in the hot sun wearing some brown clothes with stain. Agriculture has surpassed that. Agriculture has reached a stage where it is highly technologicalized, and currently no plants are grown without the use of soil. So if you are someone who don't want to get your hand dirty, there is water with water soluble nutrients that can grow your plants, so you don't have to get your hands dirty.
My name is Ashley Park, a second-year animal science student at the College of Agriculture, Science and Education. This scholarship has given me another year to work hard for my goal, as well as pushing me one step further to my life goal. It also showed me that Seprod believes in me. Motivation can be anything for anyone, but for me, I am motivated by my family and homeless children in need. In the future, if it is God's will, I would like to become a veterinarian as well as a greenhouse farmer. This would be environmental friendly and would provide me with income to make the lives of others better. To sustain humanity, humans need three basic needs: food, clothing, and shelter. Agriculture is one of the sectors that can provide you with all these three. Therefore, it is important. Our institution says it creates opportunity for growth since 1910. There you have it. Agriculture is very important. A wise man once said that you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but teach a man to fish, you feed him for his life. Agriculture can feed you for your life. If you have a passion, you'll never be hungry. I am not just using this platform because of COVID-19, but because it's the best medium to thank Seprod for the scholarship.
My name is Mona Lisa Seaton, a third-year student of the College of Agriculture, Science and Education. I am pursuing a Bachelor's of Science degree in Animal Science. My passion for animals drew me to case. I believe the best doctors are veterinarians because they have to treat patients who cannot say what they're feeling. I enjoy working with animals, studying their anatomy, physiology, management, welfare, and behavior. I hope to become an animal nutritionist, focusing on innovative techniques to help farmers create a sustainable production system. Are you planning to pursue a degree in agriculture? Well, come on out to the College of Agriculture, Science and Education. I am forever grateful to the Seprod Foundation for giving me this opportunity to realize my dream.
My name is Calvin Wright. I am currently a student at the College of Agriculture, Science and Education, where I am currently pursuing the Associate of Science degree in Veterinary Science. Being awarded this scholarship, it has alleviated the financial burdens that my family would face in helping me to pursue my current course. And so this scholarship came in the nick of time to help with the financial constraints that I would have had. My passion for agriculture is circled around livestock production, more specifically towards my aim of becoming a veterinarian in the future. So I am driven to do the work that is required of me in my current course of study. My future plans are circled around becoming a veterinarian, and currently pursuing this course. It will give me a steady foundation going forward, leading to the bachelor's and then advancing to veterinary school. So agriculture is important because it is a diverse field that anybody can go into. The norm of it being a dirty job is a myth. So I would encourage anybody to do agriculture, as I mentioned, that it is very diverse and it should be given more credit because farmers, they are responsible for the health of the nation. Thank you, Seprod. You have pushed me one step closer in achieving my dream of becoming a veterinarian, and with this scholarship, I will continue to work hard in pursuit of this passion of mine.
My name is Javon Francis, and I am a first-year student in the Faculty of Agriculture. I chose agriculture because I see Jamaica as a country that is not completely food secured. I want my country to be a country that is completely secured in terms of food. Receiving this scholarship means the world to me. This means I am one step closer to achieving my goal. My aim is to become a quality assurance officer or a product development officer. In order for me to achieve this goal, I must get this degree. And this scholarship will aid me significantly in getting my degree. Agriculture is a very important sector in Jamaica. It will ensure that Jamaica is fully food secure and will aid significantly in the development of our country. I would encourage the youngsters that there are millions of people going hungry each and every day. Despite we create so much food for our population, we cannot feed them. If we as the youngsters could find innovative ways to eradicate hunger, it would be the highest form of honor as a human being. I just want to say thank you, Seprod, for selecting me as one of the lucky candidates to receive this scholarship. I intend to give back to my country and to make you guys proud. Thank you.
Congratulations again to Rayon, Ashley, Mona Lisa, Calvin, and Javon. Thank you for sharing a bit about yourselves with us. We are extremely proud of you, and remember, this is just the beginning of your journey. As some of you pointed out, agriculture is a significant driver of Jamaica's economic growth. It provides jobs for our young people with opportunities to start their own businesses. It contributes to Jamaica's manufacturing and export sector, reducing the trade deficit and increasing Jamaica's foreign exchange earnings. And of course, as Javon highlighted, contributes toward our food security. As we have learned firsthand through the experience of this pandemic, we must focus on food security to preserve the lives and livelihoods of our people, especially during times of crisis. Today, we bring the leaders in the industry together to inspire, motivate, and challenge you in the way you think about the industry and the opportunities available to you as we delve into today's theme, the current state of agriculture in Jamaica. Where do we go from here? We hope you listen keenly and ask any questions you may have. Please remember, everyone is on mute, so write your questions in the chat box and I will pose them to the panelists on your behalf. We will be taking questions after each presenter, so please share them as we go along and we will try to get to as many as we can. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the youngest ever Minister of Agriculture, Minister Floyd Green. With deep roots in St. Elizabeth, he's now serving his second term as Member of Parliament. A champion to the food heroes in the breadbasket parish of Jamaica, Minister Green was molded by Monroe College and further harnessed by the University of the West Indies. He began his career as an attorney at law. From 2016, he served as the Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and then was assigned Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries in 2019. Following his exceptional performance in the ministry, Minister Green was appointed and is now serving the people of Jamaica as a Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries. He will speak to us about the current state of the agriculture sector in Jamaica, as we need to know where we are now to determine where we go from here. Minister Green, I'll invite you to share your screen.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. Let me just say before I share my screen, just good afternoon to Mrs. Melanie Subrati and the rest of the Seprod Foundation team. Mr. Richard Pandui, CEO of Seprod, Dr. Derek Islandes, our president of CASE, and of course, our wonderful scholars. And we just heard some of their stories in relation to what they're pursuing. Rayon Gale, Ashley Park, Mona Lisa Seaton, Calvin Wright, Javon Francis. Other specially invited stakeholders, members of the media. First, let me say how much of a pleasure it is to share with you here today. I am deeply honored, and I want to start by just thanking the Seprod Foundation. I am extremely pleased that you continue to support agriculture in this very, very beneficial, real, and substantial way. And I speak on behalf of the students and CASE to say a big, big thank you. We know that there are a number of calls on the budget of any foundation, and you could put your money towards a number of different causes. So the fact that you recognize the critical importance of agriculture and continue to support it, we at the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries tremendously appreciate that. Now, I do know Seprod, your foundation is agriculture, so it's not by chance, but I'm very, very happy that you have continued over all of these years. So we're going to speak about the state of the Jamaican agriculture and where we go from here. Clearly, you have established a wonderful panel, and to speak about agriculture in Jamaica could take us the entire afternoon, evening, into tomorrow. So I have tried to condense my presentation into just a few areas. I'm sure that as we discuss, more things will be brought out. And as you have said, after the presentation, there will be questions. So I will share my screen and try to quickly just touch on some of the areas that I think are important, especially regarding where we are now. All right, so we're going to be looking at the current state of agriculture in Jamaica. And I'll start by giving you an overview of the sector's performance. Clearly, we continue to grapple with significant challenges across agriculture. Climate change is real and has tremendously affected us. We are seeing longer periods of drought, as well as more shorter but more intense periods of rainfall. And that was also the case in 2020. We started with a significant dry spell, and by the end of the year, we were in an intense period of rainfall. In addition to all of that, we were faced with the COVID-19 pandemic, which really saw tremendous disruptions to the markets that a number of our farmers do supply. The reality is that we started the year looking very good in relation to agriculture. For the first quarter of 2020, we recorded our highest ever production numbers, 195,000 tons of production. And that was an overall growth of 10.7% when compared to the similar quarter in 2019. So we were feeling very good that a lot of our programs were reaping dividend in relation to the first quarter of 2020. Unfortunately, COVID came, and as you would all recall, our first COVID case was about the 10th of March last year. And then we saw significant fallout in our market space. Our hospitality sector, especially our tourism sector, we do have significant linkages in relation to how much of that production is taken up. And as those markets began to fall, then a lot of our farmers would have pulled out of production. And as such, in the second quarter, the April to June quarter, we saw a decline of about 6.6% in total production. And again, we saw declines in some of our traditional export areas in that June quarter. What we recognize is that the ministry would have to intervene. And as such, we quickly started our buyback program. And that program, we earmarked about $240 million, and I'll speak a little bit more about it as we go further, to buy excess agricultural produce. And that gave our farmers a market space for their produce. We not only bought the produce, but we started our mobile food markets, our farmers markets, and we started to distribute the produce. That really gave our farmers hope, and a lot of them went back out to the field and were able to turn around that decline in the second quarter by the third quarter. And in fact, we saw a 9.8% increase in relation to domestic crop production. and I'll speak a little bit about the overall yearly growth. So our farmers were looking up and were feeling like things were turning around with the intervention of the government. Unfortunately, then came the rain. So by the fourth quarter, we saw significant rains. In fact, 14,000 farmers were impacted. We saw about $2 billion of agricultural produce being lost. And we saw the sector go back into decline of about 7.6%. Overall, though, despite the tremendous challenges, year on year, the agricultural sector has grown by about 1.3%. And a lot of that was because of some of the ministry's initiatives. So as you have heard, our $240 million buyback program bought excess produce. We were able to touch over 2,000 farmers and 30,000 farm families, and we were able to multiply that $240 million that we put, because what we did, our methodology was not only to buy excess produce, but to redistribute those produce at a cost, so we would get back funding to be able to continue the program. In fact, we have had to continue the program, and now, as it is, we are still in the marketplace buying excess produce, because unfortunately, as our farmers started to rebuild again in January, with the additional lockdowns that have come in the UK, in Canada, with the downturn in our tourism sector, we have unfortunately seen an increase in relation to excess produce, and we've had to redistribute it. One of the things that we did during the crisis as well was, with the help of our private sector, was to promote local consumption through our Say Yes to Fresh campaign, where we said to our population that you must go out, support our farmers, you must buy with purpose, you must say yes to fresh. Again, we think that has tremendously helped in terms of to drive up local consumption by all accounts, whether we talk to our poultry people, whether we talk to our egg farmers, whether we talk to even our local produce farmers. We're seeing increased demand for fresh Jamaican produce locally. So I think that's one of the big things that's led to the turnaround in relation to quarter and quarter, and has allowed us to still record some growth across the sector. We've not only helped our farmers, we've had to help our fisher folks who have had a challenging time due to COVID-19. They've had downturn in their markets. A lot of them have a difficulty in relation to retool. We allocated about $120 million to help our fishers in relation to getting fishing equipment, fishing gear, so that they could retool and get back out. We help both our artisanal fishers. We also help those who do aquaculture. We also help our industrial fishers. And as you may know, we're about to reopen our conch season, and we provided about $83 million in support in relation to our industrial fishers, so that they will be in a position to get back out there. I want to speak a little bit about some of the present things that we're doing in relation to a more overarching vision that we have for the sector, so that you can get a better feel of where we are, because we do consider agriculture and fisheries to be in a state of transition and transformation. And part of that means to be able to better prepare for these weather events that have become commonplace, especially due to climate change. So we have launched our disaster risk management mitigation committee. In fact, they would have held their first meeting in January of this year. And part of what we're doing is to try to ensure that we better plan for these weather events. So we are already tracking what is happening across our parishes in relation to the places that are experiencing drier than normal conditions. So we're seeing that already St. Elizabeth, Manchester, parts of Portland, parts of St. Thomas, parts of Clarendon are experiencing drier than normal conditions. In fact, some of those places have gone into full drought-like conditions. So I've already started the intervention in relation to the distribution of water. You will see that come next month, we will be starting a distribution of 2,000 quarter-acre irrigation kits, again, to help our small farmers to be able to withstand these weather events. We're also focusing tremendously on water and rehabilitating and constructing water catchment areas so that our farmers can have water, which is still one of the challenges that they have in relation to being able to properly farm. I think we all know that the provision of irrigation supply, the provision of water is critical if we're going to have a robust agricultural sector. And part of what we're trying to do is to, one, ensure that we expand our irrigation network, and also to provide these water catchment areas to better serve our farmers. But we're not only expanding our irrigation network, we're trying to do it in a sustainable way. I won't play the video in the interest of time, but what we're trying to do is ensure that all our new irrigation systems are run on renewable energy. So we would have just this week outlaid a new 120 kilowatt solar powered plant to run our pump house in Ebony Park, again to serve about 172 farmers that will deal with at least 75% of our needs in relation to energy. Not only are we looking in relation to water as we look at the current state of our agricultural sector, and we are undertaking two of our biggest projects to expand our water supply, which is our Essex Valley project, which will bring irrigation water to about 1,200 hectares of land, and our Southern Plains project, which would bring irrigation water to about 700 hectares of former sugar lands down in Clarendon. But we're also looking at how can we better serve our farmers and our fisher folk by ensuring that they get the regard, respect, and the financial access that they need. And one of the things that we've been really championing is trying to get our financial services to better cater to our agricultural sector. So hopefully you would have heard that we have worked with our private sector, and we have now unveiled a health and life insurance scheme for our farmers and fisher folk. Sagicor has answered that call, and we now have our Sagicor AgriCare insurance plan to help our farmers and fishers in relation to things like primary health care, life insurance, personal accident, hospital care. And again, we do expect other private sector players to answer that call and to help us in that regard. Where do we go from here? So I spoke about a little bit in relation to the long-standing challenge of water, a little bit in relation to having our farmers get more financial access. We do want to see crop insurance. We do want to see insurance in relation to our fishing vessels. We do want to see the private sector providing greater resources through capital at low cost for our farmers to be able to expand their investment. But in general, in terms of our strategic mission and our strategic goal, it's really to transform our agricultural sector to ensure it is market-driven, that it is research-based, and that it is sustainable. So we're going to be focused a lot of energy in relation to research. We want to bring back up our research capacity. If you were to ask me, what are some of the things that government really should focus on in relation to agriculture, is to ensure that we are at the cutting edge of research across agriculture and across fisheries, and that entities like CASE or Bodo's Research Station are leading that charge. We do need the private sector to help us in that regard, because again, I've said it time and time again that your agricultural sector will not progress further than your research agenda. So it's very critical that we work together in moving our agricultural sector forward through research. The other thing is that we want to be market driven. So we want our farmers and our fisher folk to be producing for the market, to be analyzing the market and seeing what are the market demands. And we expect at the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries to strengthen our capacity to look at the marketplace, both local and abroad, and to really provide those extension services to our farmers to say, these are the areas, these are the crops, these are what you should be looking into. You should be planting directly for a market. And critical to that market is what Richard would talk about in relation to agro-processing and working with the private sector to determine what we should be planting, picking those winners, and having one clear trajectory in relation to our agricultural sector. Again, I try to go a little quicker, but you will see, and I'll share the presentation, some of the things that we will be focusing on in terms of agro-processing and focusing on building sustainability. So really at the core of it is to build a market-driven, research-based agricultural sector that really engages the private sector. We want our agriculture and fishery sector to be private sector driven, while the government plays a facilitator role in setting the overarching framework focusing on policy, focusing on research, focusing on choosing the areas that we believe we have a competitive advantage in, and setting that framework for people to actively go into that. Again, I'm sure there are other things that we will discuss as we go into the question and answer segment, but I'll leave it at that and open up for your questions.
Thank you, Minister Green, for that comprehensive presentation. We love that the ministry is making a concerted effort to attract women and youth into agriculture. We're just gonna check if we have any questions in the chat box. I want to remind everyone, please, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat box now. Okay, Minister Green, I have a question for you. Can you say more about urban farming and the opportunities that exist there for young people?
Well, thank you. And let me say clearly, youth is one of our primary focuses of the ministry and engaging our youth. In fact, one of the first things I did as Minister of Agriculture was to work with the 4-H Club to launch a youth roadmap where more of our young people can see some of the opportunities that are out there in agriculture. I did find a lot of young youth who want to get involved. They're uncertain of what pathway to follow. Where do they turn to for training? Where do they turn to for financing? What are the opportunities? And one of the ones that you've raised is urban farming. And the ministry is going to be making a dedicated push in relation to urban farming. In fact, we just launched last week our backyard gardening program, as it is called, and it really focuses on urban and semi-urban spaces for our people in those spaces to go into farming. So even though it's called a backyard gardening program, it's really a home gardening program that looks at not just planting in your backyard, but things such as container gardening. How can you use the space that you have in the urban areas and still plant your own food? So that is actually, that application process is still live and online, and people can go to rada.gov.jm and apply for their urban backyard gardening kits and start that process. We're also going to be complementing the kits with a full resource, online resource, where you can go and we can walk you through how do you effectively go into backyard gardening, home gardening, urban gardening. The other things that you will see us pushing a lot more of is some of the things that are more suitable for urban gardening, such as vertical farming. Again, agriculture has progressed beyond just having significant amounts of space, just using land to cultivate. But as you would have heard from one of your participants, again, you can use hydroponics, you can use these vertical farming spaces. I have a young farmer now who is based in Spanish Town, who he grows lettuce commercially in a room in his house, again, using a hydroponic method of vertical farming. So we are continuing our training, especially of our extension services, to be able to provide greater support for these, again, more modern forms of agriculture. And we are going to be saying to our young people, agriculture has changed. Look to these forms of technology if you're interested in getting involved in agriculture.
Okay, thank you, Minister Green. Just to follow along, I know there's the movement, to grow what you eat. What would you say to critics of that maybe that's not enough, that encourages a focus inward for us to just grow essentially what we need versus a focus outward to try and build exports?
I think the problem is that we've seen it as either or, and that has been our challenge. I do believe we have not spent enough time talking about our export markets, and we've not spent enough time trying to capitalize on those export markets. But it's definitely not either or. I believe that in relation to food security, you have to look across and see what in the case of crisis, if all our borders were to close, what would your nation eat? What would they feed upon? And you have to try and make yourself secure in those items. And then on the other hand, you have to have an export stimulation drive to ensure that you're catering to the market space that is out there clamoring for Jamaican products. So what you will see more of from the ministry that I lead is, yes, we will still look at, say yes to fresh. We will still look at how do we support our local farmers, because we still have to understand that, as we've seen in COVID-19, that in times of crisis, you still have to be able to feed your population. And I have asked my technical team to give us those very practical ways to say, how will we feed our population? What will be our starch? Do we grow enough? Is it that our starch will be yam? Is it that our starch will be table potato? What would be our starches? What will be our main meat kind, our main protein? Will we have to look to legumes? Will we have to look to fish? Do we need to increase our tilapia production? Again, we are a country that consumes chicken. Do we need to, again, look at bringing in some local component of the feed, or do we need to look at storage facilities to ensure that we have enough feed that can bind us through a time of crisis? So we do still have to look at the local feeding yourself component, but you will hear us speak a lot more about export stimulation. So what we're doing now is that we have identified some crop lines. And I do believe that as a small country, we will have to choose winners. We won't be able to do everything, and we won't be able to do everything competitively. So we have to look at where we have a competitive advantage. For example, we have a competitive advantage in Blue Mountain coffee because, again, Blue Mountain coffee can only be grown here in Blue Mountains. So how can we capitalize on that? We have a significant demand, as we are seeing now, for yams. How can we raise our yam production? Look at the technology, bringing things like Miniset to ensure that we're capitalizing on that. We see that we have a significant demand for things like turmeric, ginger. We've looked at the model. We see that we can grow it competitively. Our farmers can get a rate of return of about 65% in relation to profit line. So we're going to be focusing more of our energy on specific crop lines. So we won't be doing everything, I'll tell you from now. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, thank you, Minister Green. We have a few questions in the chat box. Someone is asking regarding the insurance policy, how can you sign up for it? That's the first part of the question. And they're also interested to know how to become a registered farmer as a college student.
Yeah, so there's really no age limit on being a registered farmer. You can go to Seprod and sign, especially if you're already in farming. One of the things that we did see when I went on my listening tour, a number of people had said it's challenging if they want to sign up before getting into farming, because based on our registration guidelines and verification, you have to be in farming because we have to go out and do some verification. But we are looking at different methodologies, whether we can have a temporary license system and then people transition. But if you are a college student, if you're already in farming, visit your RADA office and you can sign up. The RADA office will also be handling enrollment for the insurance forms. So once you're a registered farmer, you can enroll for the insurance program through your RADA office or through the National Fisheries Authority office.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers the question. Let's take a question from Javon Francis, one of our scholars. Why can't the government ensure that all high schools have a biodigester at the schools?
Yeah, Javon, thank you. It is a good question. Oftentimes, cost is the challenge. Unfortunately, as with budgets, you're oftentimes not able to do all you would like to do. Our education system still has a lot to be done in relation to some of just the fundamentals, in relation to the plants at our school and how they are doing, and just classrooms and ensuring that you infuse technology in the classrooms for the delivery of what you're putting forward. But I do believe that the biodigester is a good idea. Maybe through public-private partnership. You've put it out here and we have a good company like Seprod online. Maybe we'd want to work with the ministry, target some schools and see how we could get that done. I do think it's a good idea.
Okay, great. That's something we can look at in the future to get biodigesters, or to help to get biodigesters in schools. We have another question from Demar. What plans are being put in place to have more young people to be involved in agriculture, to be involved in the agriculture sector? Yeah, that's the question. How are we gonna motivate young people to get involved?
Yep. So, you know, we are now finalizing our youth in agriculture policy, but already we have started moving ahead to try and really incorporate youth in a real way. So one that indicated we would have launched our roadmap, and if you haven't yet seen it, you can check the Jamaica 4-H website, and you can see the roadmap, which brings together in one space how young people can get involved. I think the other thing that you'll see us doing a lot of is telling the stories about young people who are already involved in agriculture and who are doing well. I think a lot of our young people have some significant misconceptions about being involved in agriculture. What does it mean? The different professions that are tied to agriculture. It doesn't necessarily mean just being a farmer. It doesn't necessarily mean just going out to sea if you're interested in fishing. So we're going to be putting more information out there to one, all the areas that are connected to agriculture, and two, to the success stories. Oftentimes you hear about agriculture, you hear some of the challenges, but you don't often hear the success stories. The fact that, you know, Seprod has done tremendously well as a company that was rooted and founded through agriculture. How can we tell more of those stories so young people can appreciate that agriculture is big business? We are focusing on areas like apiculture. So definitely our beekeeping industry. What we have done from the ministry is that we've trained some of our extension officers through RADA to specifically deal with apiculture. So if you're interested in that, you can look to RADA, who can help in terms of setting up your apiculture and your bee farm. The other thing that we've done is by way of policy as we move forward, we are securing specific spaces across government land for our young people. So in fact, we've reserved 20% of government land for youth. So across our agri-parks, across our sugar lands, and we are giving priority to young people who want to get involved in agriculture. So they can approach, for example, the Agro-Invest Corporation. That's one of the entities that treats with our agri-parks, or they can approach the Sugar Company of Jamaica Holdings. The reality, however, is that you still do have to come with a plan. So it's not just, we're not just going to give you a land and say, here, go farm. We want to see that you have a set plan, you have a set market, that you've given some thought in relation to not only what you're going to cultivate, but how you're going to move it forward. And we would help you in relation to the land.
Okay, thank you so much, Minister Green. Rayan, I see your question and we're going to get to that, but in the interest of time, I'd now like to introduce our next presenter, Mr. Richard Pandui. Mr. Pandui is the president of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association and CEO of Seprod Limited. He's passionate about growing value and creating success stories, believes in giving back, and is committed to helping other Jamaicans achieve their potential. He's widely respected as a transformational and visionary leader and can usually be found at one of Seprod's factories or farms checking up on things. Mr. Pandui, over to you to speak to us about the importance of agriculture to the manufacturing and export sector. Please, we invite you to share your screen.
First of all, I know Minister of Green has to leave, so I want to thank him first of all for being here. And all the best. You're doing a wonderful job. Seem very active out there. Thank you, Lisa, for bringing us all together. My good friend Derek Deslandis, Dr. Deslandis, good to see him. To all the scholars and all the people from the foundation who have made it today happen, I want to greet you and to thank you for the opportunity to be able to spend a few moments with you to talk about something that's very passionate to me. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go pretty quickly because I think Minister Floyd Green did a really good job in doing update and stuff. So my presentation will be a little bit simple. So for the case students, I had the opportunity of a couple of months ago to actually come up on the tour of the facility with Dr. Deslandis. I was really very impressive. I enjoyed it completely. Dr. Deslandis had me walk until 9:30 at night. I could not see anything, but anyway, I mean, he was making sure that he got full value for his money. But I was very impressed with the work at Case. I think you guys are just doing some awesome job. I just wish that Jamaica could know exactly what's happening at Case. I think Dr. Deslan is, I think, somebody put in the Gleaner recently that, you know, case need to make the case, make the people. So
that is correct, Richard. That's correct.
So I want to talk quick. My presentation will be very brief. I mean, it's very simple. So I want to talk about what industry look like, and you know, so just a quick summary. So manufacturing and agriculture. I want you to remember those two. So our industry size, manufacturing and agriculture, not dissimilar in size, 47 billion and 41 billion respectively. And this is for the 9 months period up to September 2020. However, export value in manufacturing is almost four times that of agriculture. However, the employment in agriculture is substantially more, almost 200,000 persons, second largest in Jamaica, only behind tourism. Well, I'm sure it's the largest now by far. Agriculture, 200,000 versus manufacturing, just about 70,000. Look at this number, value of loans. Manufacturing far more than agriculture. So listen to those connections, and we're going to talk about them. Contribution to GDP. Manufacturing 8.6%, agriculture 7.1%. Now GDP, you have to remember, you know, you hear all these terms, inflation and GDP, I'll get a little bit confused sometimes. GDP actually refers to value added, okay? So let's say Jamaica is having a boom in construction, lots of apartments going up, etc. But it doesn't add a lot of GDP because those are economic activity. They're not creating a lot of value added because a lot of the materials are being imported. Agriculture is one of the few things that can actually create great value added in Jamaica if you link it with manufacturing to create agro-processing. But I just want to point this out. So when you look at this picture, a couple of things jump at you. It seems as if agriculture is very low productivity. A lot of people employed to give a lot of value, to give very little value, relatively speaking. That jumps at you. It means there seems to be an absence of technology because not much loans. You'd expect if you're buying equipment and investing, you'd see a lot more loans, or they're probably not being supported by the availability of capital the way manufacturing is. So those are things that jump to you. And the export, I think this is terrible. I think the export, that what we're exporting in agriculture is primary product, what the lowest part of the value stream. We're not doing much value added, okay? So these are what this jump at me and say. So let's go on some more. A little bit of more summary of the agriculture. So this is our top agricultural import, which is corn. Hello? Yeah, it's a top agricultural import, and that's primarily because of corn being brought in for feed. That's really the poultry producers, etc. That's why I say that. A lot of dried fish, etc. That's our second largest import. Potatoes, which Dr. Deslan is very passionate about because it's an easy value added. I mean, you talk about potatoes, one of the biggest value for imports in Jamaica and the CARICOM is fries. In all the fast food restaurants that you go to, everywhere you look, fries. The two most profitable item drivers in a fast food restaurant is sodas and fries. And this is an obvious value added opportunity. So, you know, we're just very much import dependent. We want to talk about Minister Green. Minister Green spoke about tourism and the linkages, very important. And you saw it a lot with the start of the pandemic when a lot of farmers were left on their face, you know, they're dumping eggs, I mean, killing chickens. I mean, a lot of the products out of St. Elizabeth, for example, some of the more exotic products that had no room, had no market to sell. And so there's linkage, there's a huge linkages there. But when you look at the tourism industry and you look at these numbers that I'm giving here, and the leakage is referred to the amount of product that is not being bought locally, you know, based on their imports. Dr. Desnines did a number, was the one who spearheaded these studies, interestingly. So when you look at the numbers, and I ran some numbers here, roughly the hotels, the tourism sector buys $20 billion worth of agricultural product annually. And there's a leakage of around almost $7 billion. So more than 33% leakages happening from the industry. That's something that's an obvious opportunity that we can use to close the gap. We spoke about the importance of agriculture to the economy. I mean, it's, you know, important as a raw material, large job creator, food security, which Floyd spoke about. So we can move on from that. But however, although we have food security, a big part of food security is food affordability. So we keep mixing up with people keep forgetting that. People can only buy if they can afford to buy. And for a country, we have one of the largest food import bill per capita in the region. And that's something that we need to address because we have so much land that not being used. And I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. That we're doing a disservice to the nutrition of our children, and the fact that we're creating the poverty level. People can't afford to buy what they're required to eat properly. Other slide here talk about key takeaway from the pandemic. One is that the agriculture industry, as it is now, is heavily reliant on the tourism industry, the linkage we spoke about. Our food security is, we need to address that. We're too vulnerable now to external shocks. The pandemic, though, is creating a huge demand for healthier, fresher products. So when I go around and visit manufacturers that are in the agro-processing space, especially healthy product, people make like ginger drink, and they make like gluten-free products and tea. I mean, their sales have gone through the roof since the pandemic. I've been to companies in the last few months where they've had to double staff, move from 8 hours to 24 hours production, cannot keep up with their export demand because there's now a demand for healthier products, because a big part of fighting the pandemic is your immune system. And people are concentrating and more aware of their health now. Also, what you realize in the pandemic, the value added in the agricultural chain is poor. We're primary producers, So if the tomato not selling, we have to dash it, or we have to government have to bail it out, because we can't go to the next process in the chain of canning tomato or making tomato paste or something like that. We're always at the primary product. If the pine get too excessive, we can't create it into pulp and concentrate and make pine juice and those things. I'm just saying that we're just not doing enough in the value chain. So the primary is feast or famine that Jamaica run into. So in December, you couldn't get tomato. It was $600 a pound in Carnation Market. I went and I couldn't get. And by the end of January, it was down to $20 a pound, and they threw it away. Can't work. Lack of value added. So what should we focus on? I mean, that's what people tend to ask me. From your opinion, what should we focus on? Well, we need to start treating agriculture and we need to stop talking about agriculture and start talking about agro-processing. I keep emphasizing this in every meeting I go to. Agriculture in Jamaica, connotates that it's just primary production. We plant the yam, we grow yam, we grow the onion, we grow the potato. But agro-processing for me takes it all the way through the value chain, And that's what we need to talk about. And you need to start incorporating technology in it. Back in the days, and probably even still currently, the dominant person, 190,000 person in agriculture, in the cane industry, etc., would have been the least educated in our country. People that, this is one of their last resort for earning. And we don't treat agriculture as a viable business to drive economy. Now, interestingly, in Europe and America and all those places, before you had an industrial revolution, you had to have an agricultural revolution. The agricultural revolution drove their industrialization. And Jamaica, for some reason, we continue to underestimate and treat agriculture as if it's a second and or third hand situation, not realizing that our economy will never grow and never progress to a point that makes sense if we don't embrace and use agriculture as a driver, or agro-processing as a driver. I soon finish, I know I'm talking a lot. And that all feeds back into capital availability. In Jamaica, it's going to pre-pandemic when everything was bubbling and everything was flying. IPOs every week. I mean, no matter what you did, you could do an IPO and raise money. There was not, I can't recall, Derek, if there was one IPO for agricultural type industry. I mean, there was IPO for a company that imported agricultural product. But I mean, there was no real investment behind, no capital, no investment behind, no equity behind driving agricultural businesses. We spoke about linkages, about technology. We don't invest in harvesting, storage, and distribution of our agricultural product. So St. Elizabeth could have a bag of product going rotten, and Kingston, they can't find a product. Country this small, we have no harvesting, no storage facilities, and the distribution. Farmers are taking the biggest risk, and they are the lowest earner in the value chain, because they have to sell to a middleman who sell to our next middleman who sell to the consumer. I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer, and I don't understand Because again, Jamaica is not trying to be at the cutting edge of anything. Forget about cutting edge. Let's just play catch up for the time being, all right? Let's adopt technology that's been proven everywhere else for decades and just bring them here. And climate resilience, Minister Floyd talked about excessive conditions. I mean, as a Seprod employee, I can tell you that in our dairy farms in November and December, hundreds of millions of dollars of damage from the rain. We haven't seen rain like that, they said, since Hurricane Charlie. And one thing that has shown us is that we have to really invest in climate resilient structure, because we're going from drought to excess rain, and both conditions are very negative for the agricultural output. Yeah, so that's where I don't want to stop for the time being, and take any questions. I don't want to just keep talking, but so in a nutshell, that's me, Lisa, and my scholars. Please ask me a hard question.
Okay, thank you, Richard. You've pointed out some of the challenges the agriculture industry faces, such as leakages in the tourism industry, an industry that agriculture is so heavily reliant on. So my question is, how can we work with the tourism sector to tackle this problem? You also pointed out just how important agriculture is, being the second largest employer. So it's just, we need to find ways to address these challenges. So how can the agriculture industry work with the tourism industry to tackle this challenge of leakages?
Right, so thanks for the question, Lisa. So there are two things happening here, right? It's not only about tourism not buying from farmers, etc. There's an issue on the farming side, right? Because when a company, a hotel goes into a relationship with you, they expect to get products consistently, and they expect to get a certain quality of product. So they need the quantity and the quality. Can I tell you, with all due respect to our farmers in Jamaica, you don't want to sign no contract with them. I mean, up to yesterday, I'm in discussion with two major agro processors in Jamaica, one exporter, one of the largest exporter, one of them. They're saying every time you go into a contract, it gets broken. Something gets changed, If you're buying cassava today and a man come off a bigger money for the cassava tomorrow, they just break the contract. So there needs to be a level of what my team considers to be an education reboot, where we need to make sure our most educated people are in the business. Now, Dr. Deslandis and I actually met and formed a relationship in Israel. We're in Israel together. And when we went there, we were in a meeting with the Minister of Agriculture in Israel. And we're asking them, what were the things that are so pivotal in Israel that make Israel a country with no resources? They have nothing. And they're exporting chicken to US, and they're producing strawberries in the middle of the desert, whatever. And he said, listen, first of all, our farmers are educated. And by being educated, it means that you can have the ability not only to raise your product, but you also are able to understand the business element, what it takes to run a business and to operate a business. I think that's a level of professionalism that we need to bring into the farming, in the agricultural, agro-processing space, and that will be a very important step. And that will take away a big part of the pushback from the tourism sector, that they keep saying that there's also consistency of supply and quality from the local suppliers. So that's very important. And also quantity of production. Something I didn't mention was a pet peeve of mine. At a major company CEO from Sri Lanka arriving in Jamaica pre-pandemic, and I was driving him from Montego Bay to Kingston, right? Showing him beautiful Jamaica. And when I reached Kingston, he said, I don't understand. Where's all the production? Where are the farms? And I was trying to explain that maca bush is our output. I mean, I didn't know what else to say. And he was just in shock, right, that we didn't produce anything. All these farms, everybody have leased for 99 years and 50 years, and they're allowed to hold these leases without producing. I think our government needs to say, if you have a lease, because these are government land, and you have a lease and you're not in production, you should lose it. And if a city would do that, you'd see a sudden outturn in our production. So these are things that are happening. People are just, there's so much. I get very passionate about this topic. I mean, I really need to give Derek a chance because he calms me down. But yeah, Lisa, answer your question a long way.
Thank you, Richard. You touched on lands and access to lands. Before we get into Dr. Deslandes, I just want to pose a question from Rayon Gale, which may require the minister's response also. He does want to know more about the lands that the ministry has available for young people, and he would love if K students get first preference because they are the future. So if Minister Green could briefly comment on this, and then we can move on to Dr. Deslandes' presentation.
I think Minister Green had to leave in a Lisa.
Right. But Lisa, let me just say that I
no problem. Rian will get a response from the minister from you.
Right.
For
But
you
I just say to
pass that along.
Lisa, can I just say?
I just want to address another.
I think you mute that, Derek. That's right. Lisa, Derek.
Okay, no problem.
To pursue your education at Case. All right, so without further ado, thank you for those questions on the chat. We want to encourage all our scholars to explore all options for their career path, including starting their own businesses in agriculture, to become agripreneurs. There's no better person to dig a little deeper into entrepreneurial opportunities in the agriculture sector than Dr. Derek Deslandes. Dr. Deslandes has published and presented papers on foreign direct investments, country branding, destination choice, and destination image, both within the region and internationally. He currently sits on the boards of the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, the Sugar Industry Authority, the Tourism Linkage Network, the Jamaica Peel Company, the Trade Board, and RADA. He has held numerous leadership positions and is presently the president of the College of Agriculture, Science, and Education, leading the college towards achieving university status. Dr. Deslandes can be considered a thoughtful and dynamic academic who constantly strives to align a pragmatic business mindset with the research-oriented and focused nature of academia in any activity undertaken, and never being constrained by the proverbial box. Over to you, Dr. Deslandes. We invite you to share your screen.
Lisa, just a quick correction. I think I might apologize. My profile changed a little bit. I'm reducing my board exposure, so I'm one less of those. But let me say that I'm now chair of their board, which is interesting, right? And certainly Richard and I play in that space, and we certainly we think that dairy right now is poised to do a lot of what Richard spoke about, because we also saw that in those innovations in Israel that just blew our minds. That on a 5-acre piece of land, a farmer can raise 600 cows. In Jamaica, they'll tell that you need 1 cow per acre. So think about that for a moment and recognize the level of efficiency that you generate in that kind of setting. So it is interesting because each of us in our own way have begun to implement a lot of what we saw in Israel, albeit on a smaller scale, because we don't have the money, so we do it the poor man way. but the point is that we intend to get to the same space. And let me just say, Richard, that we intend to be one of your largest supplier of milk in the near future. Don't remember I tell you that today. All right. Let me say that I am an academic by training, and I tend to, even though I'm the president of CASE, I tend to be very innovative in terms of my mindset and the things that I get into. And I try to, in many ways, to infuse that in the CASE structure, because I believe that innovation, entrepreneurship are the only ways forward to move this industry and to move Jamaica as a country. I had a number of presentations. I wasn't sure which way to go. And I asked my staff to choose one. but interestingly, Richard stirred up some other issues that I'm interested in. One of which I can't speak about it now in any great detail, but it's a need for what I regard as developing an innovation system in Jamaica, right? And I invite anyone with an interest in it to look at the model of South Korea in terms of how they created an innovation system that was able to move them from a third world country to a first world country in my generation. And it's important to understand that Jamaica is at a place where these are some critical tools that can be used to guide as we move forward. But let me just jump into my presentation. Richard spoke a lot about, and the minister spoke a lot about innovation, the absence of technology. Jamaica is a technology-starved country where agriculture is concerned, and it's a major cause for concern. And I would say boldly that unless we begin to embrace the innovation revolution that's taking place and the embrace the technology from wherever it's in the world it's at, we are not going to move forward as a country in this sector, right? And it doesn't matter. For the big companies will always find a way to survive. But as an industry, if we are not embracing technology, we are not going to be able to move forward in any real way. So what are these issues we're talking about? For example, using new forms of energy to improve efficiency and minimize food loss. Jamaica loses, Richard spoke about the tomato prices. The reality is that Jamaica loses close to an average of 30% of its production to losses. Tomatoes that go to waste. Mangoes that fall off the tree and go to waste. Cabbage and lettuce and in fact, the loss in cabbages is about 50%. So the farmers lose half of his production before he even gets to market. So there are some serious issues that we need to find ways, and others have done it. So there's no point in reinventing the wheel. The use of internet connectivity. And I say this because it's a real issue for me at Case, for example. The ability to use access to the internet as a teaching tool on your farms is something that we have been trying to work on, and we have done it to some degree, but not to the level that we want to get it at because of the absence of basic internet connectivity within the region that we operate. Using mobile devices and mobile platforms. If one goes to Africa, one of the things that you'll discover is the use of the basic mobile device as a critical tool in their agriculture communication sector. We use our phones to chat and waste time. We don't use our phones for productive purposes, especially as it relates to the sector of agriculture. But yet, 90% or more of our farmers, in fact, I would say 100% of our farmers have access to cell phones. So cell phones provides a platform for which you can begin to target farmers in a way that improves their own efficiency. For example, we have 100 extension officers, 200,000 farmers. You do the maths. It's impossible. One extension officer would have to spend 3 years before he gets to a farmer. So you need to find ways that farmers can be able to tap into knowledge bases that allow them to solve problems and don't necessarily wait an extension officer to come 2 years down the road. We have to also talk about data. I had a discussion with a young man recently about putting a biomarker on each of the plant so that you can actually assess each plant electronically and determine what each plant requires. And then you develop, so the drone will go out, do an assessment plant by plant, then a second drone will go and fertilize the plant based on the plant's needs. Now we call that precision agriculture, but you have to see it in operation to understand. Or see a robot picking strawberries, and you recognize how far behind the curve we are and why it's important for us to jump ahead and stop worrying about we're going to get this and get that from. We have to simply adapt the technology, go through the teething pains, go through the stresses, but we have to move forward. And using geospatial big data, for example, in agriculture, is something that we talk about for other areas of the sector of the economy. But big data is now a major tool for driving agriculture businesses. Now, let me share some of the new innovations in agrotechnology that is driving the agriculture sector globally. Plant breeding. When last have we bred a plant in Jamaica? We have virtually lost the ability to do that. we are doing limited work, but it's not enough. You need to have that. And the minister spoke about the research. This is part of the critical pieces of the puzzle that the minister speak about. Having strong plant breeding traditions that allow you to create new variety of products. For example, case, one of our lecturers is working on a new breed of potatoes that actually taps in, crosses the American Beauregard with the Jamaican yellow belly. We need to focus on some of these types of work, because this is what is going to be used to help us to create the kind of plants that works best in our environment. TP Lekki, for example, did a number of breeds of animals, the Jamaica Hope. But how long was that? 50 years ago. What has happened new since then? To create a new breed of pineapples take you 16 years. I just came across a new breed of pineapple called pink pineapple, which I'm still trying to wrap my mind around pink pineapple. It took dual 16 years to get there, right? But it's something you have to start from some point. When we buy pineapple suckers, we import everything from Costa Rica. We import the planting material from Costa Rica. In my presentation, I'll share you a picture of what we are attempting to do, because we recognize that we have to, and the point I've made to the minister repeatedly, a case, I stop talking. I just doing what I need to do. And not even talk. I mean, and sometimes people say I don't talk enough. That is true, Richard. And I probably need to do more about what we're sharing, what we're doing. But I've said to my team, we are the College of Agriculture. Let's get up and do it. Let's stop wasting time, right? Let's not worry about without the resources. Whatever we need to do, whatever limited resources we have, let's direct it in a way that adds value. Data science, a major transformation in agriculture. That again, we are falling behind the 8 ball. So the use of sensors, for example, to gather information on soil moisture. Here's one of the challenge that we farmers struggle with in Jamaica. You'll never find an acre of land with the same consistency in soil and the same consistency in soil nutrients or soil moisture. So you have to have the ability to understand what each area of that plot is saying in terms of what it requires, and then be able to put the type of fertilizer that is needed in each plot of land, in each piece of that plot. So in a country like Jamaica, where the soil composition changes so rapidly, you need to start to think about data science and how you can use that to gather and drive that kind of development. Precision technologies. So we're talking about GPS, geospatial mapping. You're talking about sectionalizing farms and designing unique applications for each portion of the farm, and coordination from your smartphone or your tablet. In other words, you use your tablet to manage your farm. This is not rocket science, students and colleagues and friends. This is real life. That's what companies are now doing to generate, to create differences in the marketplace. We talk about bioscience. For example, we recently sent potato, some of our basic ginger plants to Belgium for them to use a bioreactor to produce seeds. And SRC has now introduced one such bioreactor. It is not cheap, yes, but this has to be the way to go, because you have to start to think about producing clean plant material consistently, so farmers can start from a better place. Vertical farming, one of my favorites. Warehouse farming systems. People are now converting warehouses into highly productive units. So when the question was asked about urban agriculture, well, vertical farming and warehouse farming are two of the interesting developments in urban agriculture in the last 10 years. And I want to kind of give an example about what a warehouse farming system actually looks like. So a warehouse farming system is actually an automated system of growth. And it combines a number of different pieces of the puzzle. It is scalable. You can have the yield can be scaled to whatever production you want to. It is, you don't have to worry about weather. You don't have to worry about climate change. You don't have to worry about rain and all these things, right? It's managed by a computer. Here's the point that Richard made about Israel. You can't put a typical Jamaican farm to run a system like this. It requires a strong educational base. Is the point that Richard made, and the point that Richard didn't share with you is that what the minister said to us is that their farmers push them, because the farmers want to implement the innovation before it's even proven. In other words, the farmers are willing to test, to be the guinea pigs for those innovations. You try putting send an innovation to a Jamaican farmer. The man not taking you on. He has to wait and see that it's proved by somebody else before he gets into it. Right? So you have to be willing to take that risk. And risk taking is not a major factor in our agriculture sector. And I give you I shared a picture with you of what a warehouse farming system looks like. Those things in the middle, the cells, these are production systems. This is a new agriculture. This is agriculture of the 21st century. They produce all manner of products. They produce cabbage, lettuce, tomatoes, anything you want to produce, it can be done in a vertical system. Right? This is the future. This is where the world is going. And we have to be able to, we have to run to catch up, or we have to get there. There's no point in us trying to reinvent the wheel. What we need to do is acquire the technology and learn to use it while we fail at it. Because we are so far behind to take us several decades to catch up to where many of these countries are now. Israel, Australia, Peru. Many of these countries would have been at the same level of development of Jamaican agriculture in the 60s when Tipileki was the rage. Now they are way beyond where we are. This is an example of one of my favorite system now that especially for dairy, is an hydroponic fodder system. This is a system that uses a 40-foot container that is converted and produces 1,000 pounds of feed per day on average. It feeds cows, horses, goats, pigs, you name it. Now, a major issue with Jamaican farmers, especially in the livestock sector, is feed. Feed is your single largest component. And to be frank with you, I mean, I'm making trouble for saying this, but chicken farming is anti-mount for the majority of farmers. They're just barely eking out a living because they spend so much money on feed. The by the time they sell the chicken, is not the value that they earn from the chicken is not enough to compensate for the labor that they put into it. Because most farmers do not capture the cost of labor. So they treat the labor as free. But if you were to take that farmer and to go and find a job somewhere else, you may find you earn more money working out the street than raising chickens. These are some serious questions that we need to ask ourselves. How do we produce feed cheaper to allow the ordinary farmer to begin to earn a little more revenue than just basic subsistence? And then I took into an example of opportunities that are out there. I'm giving you just a short list. And I don't want to go through the entire presentation, but you can have it, you can share it, and I'll send the updated one to Lisa. But these are some core basic products that Jamaicans know and love and plant. But we're not doing a good job of planting enough of each of them. The demand for pineapples globally is massive. The demand for Irish potatoes globally is massive. In fact, Jamaica imports $14 million of fries. Richard spoke about it earlier. But fries requires a different variety of potatoes that we currently use now for growing for table. Table is an $8-10 million industry. Fries are $40 million industry. We have not even begun to plant a pound of potato for fries, much as talk about fries. We just import the fries. But there has to become a time. It is what Richard spoke about, the value-added opportunities. We are not thinking value-added in Jamaica. We're thinking fresh produce. And we don't think storage. We don't think retaining value over time. And it's something we have to jump into. And so I give you just a synopsis. This was done in 2016. It needs some updating, but it's still updated is minor. The data has not changed much. I have assessed the demand for pineapples at 35 million kgs. We import in 1.1 million kgs of concentrate. We validate the demand for pineapples at $38 million US, right? And we estimate the gap in production at almost 20 million pounds of pineapples. And if you look at the price that is being sold of pineapples, it's a very good price on average that farmers earn from the sale of pineapples. I can tell you that last year, well, 2019, 2020, KS earned $24 million from pineapple sales based on our production system that we've established in the last 2 years or so. And I share something with you. So this is an idea of this costs for an acre. As you can see, pineapple is not cheap to grow. Why? Because you're importing the plant material from Costa Rica at very high prices. So the average cost of production for an acre of pineapple using a new variety is almost $2.4 million. But as case has demonstrated, if you can import the pineapple suckers yourself, you can reduce this cost to about $1.2 million. And so you can recognize that pineapple is an extremely profitable venture once you have the basic resources to get into it. So this is an example of the production that we think is needed. We don't produce pineapple puree. We import $350 million worth of pineapple puree, and we're still not yet satisfying the fresh market. So pineapple is one of those opportunities that is just sitting there waiting to happen. And I give an example of what we are doing at Case, and I won't go much further because I know time is of the essence. This what you're seeing on the screen is just a small piece of what we are now doing with pineapples. Unfortunately, we are behind the 8 ball in terms of developing new varieties, so we have borrowed some from our neighbors. This is a variety that we've imported from Cuba in tissue-culture form. And hopefully in the next couple of months, Case will start to produce tissue-culture-based pineapples for sale locally. But this is, we know have 50,000 plants in the current state. We're testing a new variety of pineapple called Spanish Red. Different from MD2 that we do now, but it's really what we're trying to do is to become critical to the sector in terms of driving the production of clean plant material and also demonstrating how we can grow the sector rather than simply depending on suckers out of Costa Rica. So I'm not going to go any further. If you have any questions that anybody want to ask, I'm feel free to ask and I respond.
Thank you for that very interesting presentation, Dr. Deslandes. I know I learned a lot about both the basic and advanced innovations in the industry, which along with the investment opportunities you shared, gives our scholars some insights into where there is ripe opportunity. Let me just check if there are any questions from the chat box. Okay, there are no new questions in the chat box. But I just wanted to get an idea, since you introduced us to so many innovations. You mentioned like geospatial mapping, plant breeding. I wanted to know our farmers, the average farmer in Jamaica, do they have access to these? And if so, to what extent are these new innovations, these new advanced innovations being utilized?
The short answer is that our farmers, well, the average age of our farmers is 50 years to get to make that point. But we are seeing the numbers actually declining. So our farming population is actually getting younger. But let me say though that our farmers do not right now have access to that. What Case is doing now is adopting some of these technologies, introducing them into the space, inviting farmers to come and visit and see what we're doing. So, for example, we have moved into hydroponics and aquaponics in a big way. And we are now looking at producing large amounts, commercial level production in lettuce in our aquaponic systems. So we're using fish so we feed the fish feeds the plant, we harvest the plants. And we're doing all kinds of experiments in there to look at different type of systems. So a lot of what Richard talks about innovation, we're now attempting to get into that space. For cattle, we're moving to a zero grazing model, similar to what we saw in Israel, where land is no longer a limiting factor to growing a herd of goats or cattle. We're moving into beekeeping, we're moving into mushroom production. So we're actually moving now into the more innovative side of agriculture, the cutting edge, the new, to start to begin to share those with our students, with our staff, and to show persons how you can generate opportunities and revenue from these new types of approaches, and try to get into precision agriculture in a way that actually makes sense, using data now to drive our production systems. And it is a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge in terms of resources for the college. But the point is that, as I said earlier, we're not waiting on resources. Wherever we find $1, we're pushing it into those kind of into systems, because we need to be able to demonstrate as a school how these can be viable. And we think that if we show people the viability of these approaches, we think the funding will come.
Okay, great. That's really exciting to hear that CASE is spearheading a lot of these new innovations in the industry. I think we're a bit over time, but I still want to encourage our scholars, if they have any additional questions for our panelists, please to send them to me and we can kind of facilitate a few answers offline. Finally, I want to hand over to Dr. Patrick Sterling, the Group Human Resources Manager at Seprod Limited, to give the closing remarks. Dr. Sterling has driven this initiative each year and has served on the interview panel along with members of the CASE faculty. He also facilitates the students' internships and hands-on learning experiences at Surge Island Farms at Seprod. So I want to welcome Dr. Sterling to give the closing remarks and to help me to adequately thank our amazing presenters and scholars today. Dr. Sterling?
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wish to bring acknowledgement to our chairman, Mrs. Melanie Sabrati. You, Lisa, our facilitator, you did an excellent job. Thank you very much. Dr. Deslandes, CASE, Mr. Pandoe, CEO, Seprod, all our directors of the Seprod Foundation, and of course, let me congratulate our special CASE awardees for 2021, Rayon and Ashley and Mona Lisa, Calvin, and Javon. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, when we interview these young people each year, we are so proud that something is happening. Indeed, something good is happening. So we interview 15 of them, and they do so well. And it gives us this challenge to determine who to choose for this award. Because if we had a wherewithal, we would have awarded all of them. So I think all the applicants and all of those we interview are awardees in their own rights, because they have identified with the Seprod brand, and we were given the opportunity to make a choice. And I think over the years, we have made a good choice. So as you did say, Madam Facilitator, we started this MOU in 2016, and we are very proud to be part of a program that continues to stimulate learning, to enhance economic development through agriculture. In fact, as I speak, I'm actually at Surge Island Farms. Sometimes I think I am a farmer disguised as an HR practitioner, because this part of the business really is attractive, and you feel that you are going somewhere and are part of something that is having great value. So we want to continue to enhance the capabilities of our young people through our MOU and partnerships. And so I want to thank all our presenters this afternoon, our minister. He spoke so well, so valiantly about the prospects of agriculture. We want to thank Mr. Pandoe, so passionate about his own craft and the moving and the changes that are going to be coming forth out of our collective efforts. Dr. Deslandes, I'd just like to hear you speak, sir. It gives me hope that with you at the helm of CASE, something greater will happen for agriculture among our young people in Jamaica. So we look forward and hope, and we thank you all for your participation this afternoon. Looking forward next year to work with CASE to identify young scholars as we continue this valuable partnership for the benefit of all in this our island, Jamaica. Thank you very much.
And that wraps up our 2020 CASE Scholarship Awards and panel discussion. Thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.